Oklahoma best recruitment class 27. I don't need that line. That's out.
But you will need it for next week.
Right, I'll unscrabble it now for next
See,
week.
Get
the
the thing
Tipex
is,
out.
I even wrote on my notes, keep everyone back for 10 minutes and ask what everyone wants to do this week. And we've already done it. Like, lovely. I can put that in the can put that in the sheet now.
What a dick. Ah,
So did anyone? By the way, just want to double check this. I'm probably the only one. Um, anyone else watch the World Snooker Championships this weekend?
Absolutely not.
no, I've got better things to do.
Like what? Like, come on.
Watch paint dry.
Work.
It was on Bank Holiday Monday, so
Oh, okay. I don't know if that
well,
applies to everyone.
it was over Sunday and Monday. Um, yeah. So I've just outed myself as like the only snooker fan on face of this side of the planet. Okay, that's fine. Anyone, if you whether you're on YouTube, you'll see it on the screen anyway. If you're not, like if someone's listening and you do like snooker, come and talk to me about snooker. I have no snooker friends, right? I have no snooker friends anyway. So Lions Guy Fletch on all the social medias, please come talk to me
Uh,
about snooker.
Just remove the snooker as well, and it's also applicable.
And
Ouch.
that's everything for
Catching
today's
straight.
episode. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was just uncalled for. I don't know. Um,
very harsh.
it was accurate, but it was just uncalled for. Like, um, but no, like one of my dreams is to go to the Crucible and watch a late round. I'm not even bothered about it being the final. I just want to go to the Crucible and watch the snooker one day. So you never know. AAW snooker be there as media in a few years, maybe.
New pod.
New pod. Do you know what? If I started taking on snooker for podcasting as well, Mrs. Fletch would kill me. Like I would not survive that one. But shall we, on that note, actually get on with the podcast itself?
Why
Um,
not?
I do think that's usually a good place. It's a good place for us to start, right? So, with that being said, welcome or welcome back to the College Football UK podcast. I am your host, Fletch, and this podcast is brought to you by the AAW Network. Joining me this week, three of my four wonderful co-hosts. I have Nick, I have Adam, and I have Sam. Gents, apart from Sam, how are we this week?
I was fine until about 5 minutes ago.
Until you realised you missed out on the Snooker World Championships. I get it, man.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, if that's what you want to think, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
We can't all hit Sam's highs either, so leave him on his own. Yeah.
Yeah. Still on a
Not
high
not
actually from the Coach Hagen interview last week that
Yes.
dropped Sunday. Yeah, still trying to get over that one. That was good. Well, good time
Yeah.
well spent.
If you haven't seen that, then on the podcast feed or on the YouTube channel, we have a interview with NFL Academy head coach Steve Hagan. Gary and Adam took the reins for that one, and having listened back to it now about 7 times, it just blows me away every time. It's brilliant, great interview, and very very like both of you absolutely smashed it. It's a really great
No,
watch
thank
and a
you.
listen.
Yeah, I mean it's easy when you got someone like Coach Hagen, just let him talk and just steer here
Yeah,
and there. Didn't have to say very much, to be honest.
yeah,
Kind of it, you could if he had the time, you could just let him talk for an hour and it'd just be an hour of gold.
yeah, yeah.
He just keeps coming up with these things. It was amazing.
Yeah. To be fair, I thought you were gonna say it's really easy when you've got Gary to support you, and then you said Steve, coach, and then I was like, I get, no, that's fair. Um, Sam, go on then. I'll let you tell us how you are this week. Go on.
well, everyone knows how, if they know anything about me, it was probably the best day I've had in 20 years from a sporting perspective. It's been a long time since we've had to have any joy, really. So
What was better last night or Monday night?
Last night for sure.
Oh, right,
Monday
okay.
Monday night was a relief more than anything. It would have been better had Doku not decided to put in a second worldie of the day, but it is what it is. Any points dropped is what we wanted. But no, last night, last time we made a Champions League final was 20 years ago, and I remember it very well. So it's nice to get back there again. We're probably going to lose the
So
final.
I've
We're
been
playing against
getting
one of the two big boys.
I've
So
been getting my practice in. I'm forever blowing bubbles. That's what I'm doing this weekend. I've been practicing.
you're going to start watching Green Street before you.
Yeah, I might. I'm GSE, GSE.
Weirdly enough,
Sorry, I remember walking to Upton Park when it was Upton Park before it was the Olympic Stadium. Walking to Upton Park off the station, with all the City fans, and walking down Green Street, and there's just this bloke on the side of the street, and he's going GSC, GSC, and all the City fans just turn around and go, "We know where you live. We know where you live." It just like took all the tension out of the atmosphere. I was like, "Yeah, I love that. That's the sort of thing."
weirdly enough, I was going to say, I don't remember too many Champions League finals as a kid. Didn't watch him. City didn't even come near him, so I weren't that bothered ever as a child. But I distinctly remember the 2006 Champions League final because I was in year 6 and they'd done at the end towards the end of the year. Yeah, I know, Nick. Complain about your age in a second. But we were in year 6 and then school at the time, all the leavers in year 6 got taken away on a midweek trip to Denby. And we were the headmaster came with us and he let us all the lads stay up to watch the Champions League final on this little TV. So all these mank kids, you arrive, all City fans or United fans, no in between, all came together to stay up till 10 o'clock because our headmaster let us and cheer on Barcelona. And that's one of the few ones I'll never ever forget that. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
But
Well,
there was a useless stat that came out of that was the fact that Jens Lehmann didn't concede a single goal. He had 100% save record in that run in that Champions League run, and he got sent off, stopping them from scoring. So he was a bit selfish in preventing himself from conceding a goal, even in the final. Made sure he got sent off so he didn't concede.
So there is this week's quiz question. Who is the only English goalkeeper never to concede a Champions League goal? Jens Lehmann's German, obviously. Who is the only English goalkeeper never to concede a Champions League goal? That is this week's quiz question.
I think Jordan Pickford's never conceded one, if that helps.
I don't think he's played in a Champions League game to be able to do it.
I'm gonna go with
Scott Carson.
No. Close, but no.
Joe Hart.
No.
Oh, no, he definitely conceded a few.
Um,
Those first few years we were in it.
James
I was going to say, well, go further back, David James, someone like that.
Oh,
No,
I know
yeah.
it. I think I've got it. Is it Kyle Walker?
It's Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker.
Went in goal when Bravo got sent off and he played whatever it was 37 minutes in goal and didn't concede. He's the only English goalkeeper never to concede in the Champions League.
All those goalkeepers union posts with Kyle Walker in them for like 3 years after were great. Right. Anyway, we'll get back to the actual episode now.
The proper
Excuse me.
football.
And what was that? Sorry.
Get back to the proper football.
Yeah, we'll get back to the proper football that's played with an actual football-shaped football and all that stuff. So this week, if you haven't figured it out by the very start of the episode, we're talking about 2027 prospects for the NFL draft. Next week, we will talk about the 2027 recruiting class, of which I believe there's a bit of news today towards those excuse me, towards the recruiting class for 2027 that you should be listening to. But this one, we're going to start talking about 2027 prospects for the draft that you should be keeping an eye out on this season. Before we do get into it, though, follow AAW_CFB on social media. Follow all my wonderful co-hosts and join our free to join Discord server. All the relevant links and information in the description of the episode. And then we'll head off to Nick's news.
Right. I missed Gary's. I was waiting. Minnesota QB Drake Lindsay was arrested in the early hours of Friday morning for underage possession of alcohol and a fake ID. Who hasn't had a fake ID? I mean, come on. I think he was released reasonably a few hours later. I don't think it was a big deal apart from it was news. So, yeah. Running back Noah Roberts is committed to Texas. Number 4 running back turned down offers from Michigan, Oregon, and Arizona State. Number 1 tight end in the 27 recruitment class, Ahmed Hudson, is committed to LSU. The Louisiana native decided to stay there rather than go to Nebraska. Former NFL All-Pro Morris Jones-Drew, whose alma mater is UCLA. His lad Deuce will also be attending UCLA. He turned down offers from Arizona and Cal. The Big Ten distributed a small 1.37 billion, that's B with a billion, between its 18 members, although it's not a equal split. I think Ohio State get like
91.5.
Yeah. They get the most because of their playoff, and they won the championship that year as well. But it's a 55% increase on the previous year. And then finally, the big news rolling from last week's news regarding Brendan Sorsby is that he's hired attorney Jeffrey Kessler, who has become a pain and a thorn in the sides of the NCAA, to try and turn the situation into a winning one. He's going to try and retain his eligibility. If not, then it's just a case of getting a fair crack at the NFL. It looks like if he can't have his eligibility back, he'll go in the supplemental draft. Yeah. And for those that don't know, the supplemental draft is very rarely used, and anybody who takes him will lose the corresponding pick in next year's April draft. That's it. That's the news.
No worries. Are we anything in Adam's addendum this week?
Did we do Big 12 last week? And their private equity deal? I
No, I
don't think we did.
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did.
So yeah, the Big 12 have tied up with Collegiate Athletic Solutions. It's a 50-50 venture with Redbird and Weatherford Capital, 2 private equity firms. So there's various tranches to that deal. There's no equity, so private equity aren't owning anything of the Big 12 or any of the schools because for various reasons that can't happen. But they are going to inject, I think initially $12.5 million into the Big 12. The Big 12 will use that for commercial purposes. This new group are going to obviously look to work with the Big 12 on commercial opportunities as well. The other part is an option for each of the Big 12 schools to take 30 million of loans off of Redbird and Weatherford. Whether anyone's actually going to do that yet remains to be seen. I'm not sure if anyone's actually put their hand up. Not particularly clear what that'll look like, but it's clear that it's loans and not any form of equity. So yeah. I'm sure there'll be more on that over the next few weeks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Anything else? Is that it?
I think that might be it. There's some rumblings about the Coaches Association looking at the calendar.
Yeah.
Looking to maybe scrap the conference title games, but
and the
think
2014
that's got
playoff.
any further yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's that, and they're looking at a 2014 playoff and
Yes.
pushing forward
Yeah.
for a 2014 playoff. Sam Supplement, have you got anything for us?
I do, but I don't know if it's been mentioned. Did you? You didn't mention the Notre Dame quarterback, did you? The new one.
No,
No.
So
no.
the only reason I want to bring him up is because it's a fantastic name. For the 2027 class, 4-star prospect, quarterback pocket passer, Wonderful Mons the fourth is has essentially committed to Notre Dame to add to their quarterback room. I just wanted to bring him up because it's a wonderful name.
Yep, there we go. From Vero Beach, Florida, 3-star
Yeah.
quarterback. Wonderful Mons. Lovely.
Notre Dame did something last week. They broke a streak that had existed for 6 months. They did something they hadn't done in 197 days. They actually kicked a
Didn't
field
beat an
goal.
Army team.
They kicked a field goal in
Love
the blue versus gold game. They successfully kicked a field goal for the first time in 6 months.
Wow.
Did you not kick a successful one in the bowl game? Oh, wait, no.
Oh, we didn't in the ball game.
No, you had a tantrum instead.
We refused because of the shafting that we
Had a
had from
tantrum.
the college football playoff committee, who are still corrupt and bunch of twats, and yeah,
Threw your dummy out of the pram.
well, yeah, pretty much. You know, I don't mind admitting it. I do it occasionally myself.
Do you know what?
I did it on Monday night. I'll be honest.
I respect it. I respect a man that admits it. End of the day. Only bit of news I had was for the 2027 recruiting class as well. The Florida Gators have landed 3-star, I think it's 3-star defensive lineman Steve Bentley Kameju. I've only heard his last name about 2 hours ago. I haven't actually heard it said out loud, so I don't know the pronunciation. But it's defensive lineman Steve Bentley Kameju. He is committed to Florida, 6'3", 295 pounds. Chose the Gators over Georgia, Miami, Texas, and Auburn. The reason why I'm bringing up a 3-star recruit is because he was born and raised in England. He moved to the US in 2025, played a year of high school, and then has been recruited to Florida. And that is the second defensive lineman from England that the Gators have brought in this year, which I think is brilliant. He played for the London Blitz as a kid. And Baffer, obviously, getting onto that. And I'm not sure if he was I don't think he was a direct prospect of the NFL Academy this time around. I think he just moved to. It was
Just like
something.
went to college in America and stuff. Went to high school.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with. There's a name for the program. It's like it's something to do with giving international. Like, it's not the NFL Academy, but they try and find football opportunities at D1 schools for.
It's probably like an
athletes.
international scholarship agreement or something, isn't
It's
it?
something, but right, we'll move on anyway. And if I can find the name for it, I'll find the name for it. Because it is, to be fair, like they do some. By the looks of it, I've seen a few kids get some decent opportunities through them. But I think as a whole, that's it for news.
Yep.
Right, so we want to get on to the 2027 recruiting class, which is exactly what we're going to do. I'll start us off with a question. There are, as of today, 4 different quarterbacks I have seen get mentioned that will be first overall next year. Not sure how they're going to do it, all four of them together. But apparently, all four of these will be number one QB in the class in next year's class. We've got Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Julian Sayin, and Trinidad Chambliss, with honourable mentions to CJ Carr, who also gets thrown in there a little bit, and a couple of others. Sam, I'm going to start you off on this one. Do you want to make the case for Manning, or do you want to make the case for why Manning, like we should hold our horses on Manning?
I always struggle with, because obviously I think as Archer's proven from last year, especially sort of later on in the year, that he clearly has a vast array of talent. And last year he wasn't helped by his wide receivers dropping everything left, right, and center. But I also think it's like, until we actually see him perform in that week one, or it's so difficult to say that he should be the number one pick, because I say, there are a few others in there that I would say are just as good, if not, not saying that they're necessarily better, but I just think that there are others that, all it takes is for, someone like Moore to have a better season, or and Oregon to win the Natty. Like, that'll then determine number one picks. Like, there's so much more that can determine what leads to a number one pick. I do think Manning has the ability to do it and to be the number one pick, but I wouldn't lay my hat on it. Like, taking my bias out of it, I couldn't say for sure that he deserves to be the overall number one pick coming into this year, because if we're going based upon what they've actually produced out of college, he shouldn't be the number one pick. But does he have the potential and the ability to be the number one pick? Absolutely.
Yeah. Does anyone else got anything to say on the case for Arch Manning, whether it's pro or con?
What I would say regarding Manning is, I think, and this is not his fault, but I think he's a victim of the fact that his name, his name more than anything. Sorry, I've just realised I've gone blurry, so I'm just correcting myself. Yeah, I think the fact that he's a Manning puts more pressure on him that's unfair compared to everyone else. I think the name carries more weight because of his two uncles rather than what he actually does on the field. And while I'm not saying he's a bust, I don't think he's as elite as people are making out. He can prove me wrong this year, but based on what I'm seeing, I don't believe he's the, clear number one, no argument. Me personally, I think he's the third best QB in the class, and I would have the first three in sort of like a level of their own before a drop down to the next level of QBs. But I think it's very hard to judge Arch just on him because of all the smoke that comes with it, and that's not his fault.
Yeah, he's carrying so much baggage, and I think that's led to last season being a disappointment. I think there's this massive buzz around him. It didn't quite happen in the early bit. He recovered a bit towards the end. But I think his play needs to really shine and show something early going into the season, just so he's not carrying a disappointment and baggage around towards the end, regardless of what Texas do.
I think the problem with it, though, was the fact that at Texas last year, we didn't have a running game. The O-line was pretty much new. There was only our star guy in the O-line was essentially a freshman. Like, I think the difficulty is he, like I say, the start of the season. I mean, I said it last year. He should not have been in the Heisman. I mean, he was always going to be, but he shouldn't have been in the Heisman conversation. And this was his first. Last year was his first full year. He'd never, apart from like the odd game where he sort of filled in for Quinn Ewers, he hadn't been the guy in Texas at that point, and he kind of got, he had all the issues around with the running game, the O line, throughout the season, wide receivers dropping passes left, right, and center, as I've already said. I just think that, last season was a disappointment, not only just because of, because everyone put him on such a pedestal, but I think the group around him wasn't good enough as well, and that made him look worse because you look back to that game against Ohio. I mean, he was, once he started getting out of his rhythm and was forcing things because there was no, I mean, I said it when we were sort of watching the game, he was just forcing everything and things just weren't looking right. This year we're practically a whole different team, and I think that's this year is the real big year, and I think if he can prove himself and show what, almost live up to the hype, as because at the end of the day there is just an insane level of hype because of the fact he's a Manning. If he can live up to it and even produce close to what people think he can, there's no reason why he can't be in the Heisman conversation and the number one pick. But also part of me thinks that, and it's the same with all of these, quarterbacks, apart from probably Chambliss and maybe more, is they could potentially stay another year. There's no guarantee that they go in the 2027. So although obviously we're talking about Arch Manning being the number one, there's talk obviously Julian Sayin being the number one and all of that. There's no guarantee that they actually leave college. I mean, it just depends obviously on the situation. If one of them gets a big injury, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll always, as I have done with Arch Manning, is reserve judgment until he's able to prove himself, and try and not do what the media seem to do because of his name, is hype him up as if he's, the second coming.
Yeah, and I think for me, there's a whole point of this year. At the end of the day, like we said, it's the name. Last year, this year, it's because it's the name. It's Manning, Manning, Manning. It's what the article. That's the name that's going to get people to view your article, to watch your podcast. In fact, I think that's going to be the name of this episode. Is just Manning, 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 to try and get on some of that. But there's always going to be someone who's overhyped, overhyped just in terms of the fact that the season's not yet started. You kind of put all your stock in that person. This year it's pretty much Arch Manning, though there are a couple of others that do get thrown in those conversations this year. Last year, I think when you go on to game one, you saw some of the things he was doing, and he was so confident going into that game. Some of the sidearm throws and some of the little things that he was trying that just weren't working. And you were just a bit like, this is your first proper start and you're against the national champions here. Don't do that, just do the things. And then he gets into the point of forcing it. But I do think, though, I was watching the compilation of it the other day of all the drops that his receivers had last year, and some of them were shambolic.
Yeah, they were awful. I watched that
Really bad. They were on the numbers, not too it's not like he's slinging the rock at the chest and trying to take the numbers off the chest. They were good throws, right on the money, and just getting dropped from in two hands and just getting dropped. So I'm really excited to see how he gets the relationship with Cam Coleman going and all that sort of stuff, and then we'll take it from there. I think he grew a lot last year. He was a lot better at the end of the season than he was at the start of the season. That's to be expected. Whole new off season and another year of getting better. I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops.
I think it shows you just the level of, I suppose, hype that comes with a Manning name, is the fact that, there's already videos out there of Peyton's son, who's not even like, he's in like what, middle school at the moment,
Class
maybe
of
just
2030 for recruiting.
Yeah, like why are we watching videos of him, spiraling a ball just because of the name Manning? Like, it just that it's I mean, it's how the media work, isn't it, at the end of the day? But it's just so bizarre that we're talking about a guy that is only just sort of, I think he's due to get his first start at quarterback this year for his high school, and we're already talking about him in the 2030 class. It's like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what that name brings, and Arch is going to have to navigate that for an entire career. So he needs
yeah.
to start now, get, carrying that name.
And he's going to have to prepare for the fact that he's probably going to end up being playing for the Arizona Cardinals, so or someone like that, or the Jets. So he's going to have to just get
Excuse,
used to disappointment.
excuse me, he might be on his ass playing for the Arizona Cardinals, but he'll be on his ass while trying to get the ball to Jeremiah Love. Like, that's a wonderful
That's true.
position
Yeah,
to be in. Um,
that's true.
Either way, I'm
And
going
all
to
the other
ask.
running backs they have.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
seven of them. By the way, I want to ask this question. This is your trivia for the week. Who has more? Cleveland Browns quarterbacks, Arizona Cardinals running backs? Because it's kind of trivia and kind of, I
It,
don't know anymore.
it's starting to look. I think running backs are taking it at the moment.
Just about
Although they did
close.
draft another quarterback, didn't they? The Browns. They did draft another quarterback, so maybe it is quarterbacks.
Bloody
That's
hell.
not a good place to be in, is it, really, for either team?
No,
However, does it right? What about the other quarterbacks of this class? Is there anyone else who, in particular for you, Adam, that stands out going into this year? Um, I will
Anyone in
put,
particular?
no, I will give you one caveat that biases
RB Arch
aside,
Manning.
it can't be Dante Moore.
Fair enough. Um, I'm, I don't know if this is going to ring true or not, but I had my eye on Lenora Sellers this last year. Then it obviously fell apart very quickly for South Carolina. I just liked he's the dual threat aspect of him. He seemed to be able to do both going into last season.
Yeah,
And I was hoping, well, we were all hoping for a little bit more. Thought he could have been drafted. He's not gone into the draft. He's sat. We need to see what South Carolina come up with in general as a team this season. But he's kind of one I've got my eye on in the periphery. That's not me saying he's going to go top three
yeah,
or anything like that, but he's just someone of a person of interest as I watch this thing play out.
yeah. I mean, South Carolina. Everyone looked at them last season as potential, like not maybe not challenging for the SEC championship, but they could be on the fringe of the playoffs
Yeah, they
as a
looked
team.
interesting.
Because Linares and a lot of that was down to how good Linares Sellers looks and
Yeah.
how very good he can be. I think it's a really good shout, to be fair, an excellent shout. I'm glad I put that restriction on you now. Um,
I wonder what I would have said otherwise.
um, but in another universe where you're allowed to promote your own team, what about Dante Moore and how do you see the Dante Moore? Should he be the number one favorite to go number one overall next year?
So taking bias out of it, I mean, he's a very good quarterback. He could have gone in the draft this year. His processing intelligence is up there. There's just some elements that I think need to be improved going into this year. And to be fair, he has grown each year that's gone on. I think some of the processing under pressure, the legs are a bit of an issue. So running is not a key weapon of his. He'll run if he has to. We don't do designed runs for him. Doesn't work. How that'll look to an NFL scout, yeah, remains to be seen.
Yeah,
So I think he's got some things he needs to show and improve on as well. But a Ducks team that's got a great um, set of weapons around him, elevate quarterback. So if we go on a really good run in the later stages of the playoffs, Natty, he could look like a very, very high pick. It's like all these things. It just depends. But
yeah.
I'm not. I love Dante. I'm not ready to say he's a shoe-in for number one pick at the moment.
I think
Okay.
it'll be interesting for him this year with having to have, not obviously that he's going to be the starter, but having someone like Raiola sat behind him, eagerly ready to push him and to take that spot if he doesn't turn up. I think that's going to massively help him because I
Yeah,
think it'll give him the push that he needs to make sure that he's at his game every single week. Otherwise, he could lose his spot. I think this is one of the things that maybe probably gets taken for granted a lot of the time at college, because you tend to have your starter and it's that guy, or in some places like, Florida State, where you decide to try and do committee quarterbacks, or in Michigan, you had that year where you tried to do committee
Oh, that was
quarterbacks.
horrible.
But generally speaking, you tend to be fairly set on who's your number one. And I think having essentially two number ones ready to go, it's going to make that interesting. So I do think that's probably one benefit that he'll have, is that he'll have to be at his best at all times, and obviously that'll then show going into the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It'd be really interesting to see. I mean, everything I've seen, the sort of the documentaries and bits and bobs you see from the team, the chemistry seems to be building, seeing them two together. But he'll know that there's a very, very good quarterback on the sidelines, if he's giving it away.
Two things, really quick. One, I don't know why specifically wording you threw at me then reminded me. There was a piece of news that should have gone in last week, but never did, to do with the Ducks. Don't think it went in. That the Ducks are doing the training camp this summer in Japan.
But yeah, we never talked about that.
Uh,
Yeah.
which I think is really, really cool. Definitely deserves a shout out in how cool that is. But they'll have like Dante Moore out there and a few of the others all going doing drills and training camps in Japan, which just brilliant. The other thing I was gonna say, and now I can't remember that either now. Yeah, that was it. The name of the place for the UK guy who's gone to high school and now got a place in Florida, it's Gridiron Imports. That was the name of the company, Gridiron Imports. So, with that in mind, Nick, have you got anyone that's particularly standing out to you as far as quarterbacks go in 2027?
I mean, I think for me, the thing I was most interested was, and it's a bit mute now, was to see how Salisbury stepped up from Cincinnati to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And I was, taking everything aside, I was really interested in watching that, because I felt he was a better QB than Brendan, whatever his lad's name that's just left, Brendan Mayer, who's just left Texas Tech and gone to the Patriots in the draft. I felt Salisbury was going to be a better prospect, and so I was quite interested to see how that Texas Tech defense was going to hold up and an improvement on the offense. Now, obviously, the news that's come out the last 2 weeks has kind of like put a skew on that. I think all I will say is, because I share Adam's opinion of Dante Moore and I share, Sam's opinion of Arch Manning. All I would say is those two, along with Julian Sayin, are the top three. They are they're in a group, well above anybody else, and I think you will expect. I expect all three of, regardless of the season they have. I mean, I think all three of them could have a poor year, and they'd still be the top three QBs to come out in the draft. But I would expect all three of them to have gone in the top 10 at the most, if not higher.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's just down to the fact that there are so many teams that need quarterbacks going into next year, I would say. But I mean, I was kind of doing like a good look at all of them, and I think there's a good for me, there's a number, depending on whether they go in this draft or not. I mean, you've even got, I think, is Mensah actually, because again, I've seen him in a number and I think he's eligible, but I don't think he'll go. He's another one who could, see what happens obviously with him, but he's another one, going to Miami, he could quite easily be someone who's in that conversation. Probably not the same level as those three, but you've got Mensah, you've got Sellers, you've got Chambliss, you've got DJ Lagway. I think 2 years ago he was probably going to be in that grouping of the top 3-4, and he's fallen off a cliff. So I really am interested to see how he'll do at Baylor. And I think that could be really good for his career. Um,
Damn it, Sam,
but
you
he's
took
someone.
mine.
Oh, sorry. And then the only other one I wanted to mention, and again, it's down to the fact that he's moved, and I want to see how he performs. Is Sam Leavitt at LSU?
Yes, that
I
is an
think he
excellent
could
one.
be a dark horse for someone who could be in that conversation.
Yeah, I'm really interested. I'm really interested to see how Lane Kiffin takes that offense and elevates it from what Brian Kelly had in the first place last year. Um, because a lot was said in the aftermath of what happened between Ole Miss and LSU at the end of last year. But um, I mean, most people are not. Paul Golding took over, not Paul Golding. God, that every single time he's the leader of. I'm not even saying the name of the place. Paul.
I think Golding, isn't it?
No, no. Again, I'm aware.
Pete.
Pete Pete Golding. Yeah.
Pete Golding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Um. I would say Paul Golding is an entirely different human being who I don't want to give any airtime. Don't want to give any airtime to. Pete Golding, defensive coordinator, he takes over. The defense is expected to step up. He was the best coach available, but it's the offensive side of the ball that Lane Kiffin's known for producing, and that's where Ole Miss were fantastic on the defensive side of the ball, but they were really, really, really good on the offensive side of the ball as well. So I'm really interested to see how Lane Kiffin does take that LSU offense, how he elevates it, and how he brings then and really gets to work with Sam Levitt. I think that's a great one. DJ Lagway was my one. I think he was obviously held back by Billy Napier in Florida because Billy Napier is useless, at least at the Power 4 level or at the level of somewhere like Florida in the SEC. He's gone back to the G6. I reckon you'll start to see Billy Napier look a lot better as a coach back in the G6. Um, so yeah, it would have been DJ Lagway for me as my outsider. I do want to bring up Julian Sayin though. And I'm so ready. I'm just going to call the hater and I know it and I don't care. Um, stats stats accompany the tape. The tape does not accompany the stats. The stats are one thing. Yeah, he's got a really good completion percentage and all that sort of stuff. When you're throwing slants and out routes to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and those kind of guys, damn it, I'd have a 75% completion percentage at that point. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm saying he is being asked to play such a simple role at quarterback, and then the Ferraris are doing all the work. I'm not sold on him at all whatsoever, and I think as he starts to lose a couple of those pieces of talent, but unfortunately, that stupid school down south just keeps reloading on incredible talent and don't stop. Um, so we'll constantly have a pull. I think the stats will get him so far. The tape looks okay, but when you realise that, like I say, he's being propped up here by a lot of Ferraris, and they're making him look, I think, a lot better than he is. I think, or I hope that by the time it gets round to the draft next year, unless Julian Sayin starts pushing the ball down the field more, unless he starts making some of those, I want to say dodgy throws. Then they're not dodgy, but starts pushing the ball downfield, starts trying to make the case for some leverages and make his receivers go and have to work for it. I think NFL scouts are going to start seeing that he doesn't do those things, and then also remember that CJ Stroud had one good year, and that's the greatest thing any Ohio State quarterback's ever done in the NFL. So they'll remember that you just don't work in the NFL, those guys. Um, but that aside, I think he's a great kid, and I think he's a good college quarterback who's been put in a good system around him. I just don't see what's going to make him NFL level talent or high level talent apart from stats and rather than tape that looks good, it's a lack of tape that looks bad, if that makes sense at
Yeah.
all.
So what he's missing is the evidence where the game's on the line and he needs to go down the field and snatch the game, win the game.
I think he had that against Indiana, didn't happen. He had that against Miami, didn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, I think every other game, I mean, look at the game against Michigan. They absolutely demolished us all game. There was no, and for the majority of that season, how many times during that season did he really have to dig deep in the fourth quarter? I think it was out of the fourth quarter more, Mbappe
He
for him more than
he certainly hasn't had to really deal with any adversity. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And being a top level talent QB coming out of college and going into the NFL, you're going to go to a team where you're going to see a lot of adversity. So that's going to be the only thing that's potentially going to blot his potential going forward is the fact that he's he's not he's not had a bad time of it. And you to a certain degree you can't really criticize him for that because it's not his fault. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of college and he's gone to arguably a team that his talent in high school has allowed him to go to a team with
yeah.
multiple weapons. But at the same time, is that, like you say, it's can he be the guy, the one that it's all right throwing to Jeremiah Love and Tate and what will soon be Chris Henry and all of that, but can he when it's not working, can he be the guy? That'll be what we want to see from him this year. And I think that, there's a few games where that could potentially be the case. So I think this year is going to be important. But like I've already said, it wouldn't surprise me if Sayin stayed another year in college. But again, it just depends on how it works out for him. If he ends up getting injured, and then he's definitely not going to be in the draft, I reckon. Whereas if he wins the Heisman, he probably will. So it's just honestly how it goes really. But um,
I think
yeah, I think overall, I just think I think obviously comparing it to this year's draft, the potential for quality of depth in the QB class is significantly better than what we see from the year we've just had.
the
Yeah.
closest game he was involved in during the regular season, aside from the Texas game, which was 14-7, how many points were in the closest game of the season for them?
Probably something like, I mean, they blew a lot of teams away, didn't they? So probably 14 points, something like that.
Not 14, 18.
18.
And they got
Close to
the,
20.
their closest, apart from the Texas game, their closest margin of victory, the closest they came to a loss was two 18-point wins. That was against Michigan, 27-9, and against Washington, 24-6. The rest of the games they were winning 34-10, 38-14, 34-0, 34-16, 70-0 against Grambling State. But to be fair, I think we could put 70-0 up on Grambling State.
Oh, did they lose to Indiana? Can you remember?
13-10. Oh, I remember that one. I'm gonna get that tattooed on me, if anything. Um,
Of course you can. Of course you can. Silly question.
but I would say when, and this is my point, and again, call me a hater if you, people can call me a hater if you want. That's fine. When scoring 14 or more points, they were 12-1. When scoring 14 or less points, they were 1-2. The win being Texas. They also lost to Miami 24-14. So when the game is not going his way and it's not going Ohio State's way, he hasn't got it over the air. I'd want to see next year. And look, at the end of the day, you can't begrudge a guy. At the end of the day, if the team's up by that much and the defense are doing their job and then the offense goes out and keeps doing its job, you can't begrudge him for it. But what I would like to see is a game that's 21-24 with 3 minutes to go. How are you dealing with that adversity? And I just think if to see him be a top pick in the draft, you have to be able to overcome those moments. And so far, he's been in 2 of them,
Yeah.
and
I
both
think
times he
this
lost.
year,
He's
I
going to get his
think that
chance this year, isn't he?
yeah, I was going to say, looking at their schedule this year, I mean, obviously they've got to play Texas, which is going to be a different Texas from last year.
Hmm.
Even the likes of Illinois, Iowa are probably going to be harder games than before.
Yeah.
Indiana's obviously going to be a difficult game. Oregon's definitely going to be a difficult game.
USC
Even
won't be easy
obviously,
to get their place.
yeah, and USC, yeah. I mean, even Michigan as well. Obviously, it's always a difficult game with rivalry week. So their schedule is not as easy. You would
No,
still expect them to win, I would say, a good number of games, but there's a lot more opportunity where we'll be able to test, or be able to see the test on Julian Sayin this year. And this is why I think it's, you need those tougher schedules to be able to determine whether he's got
got the
the
minerals.
minerals to be able to, to be able to make it in the NFL as
Yeah, yeah,
a quarterback who is going to be likely a bad team.
yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not saying he's not got the minerals. I'm just saying I'm yet to see it.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
want to see it.
Um,
I can't
that
think as well. Has he got a set of legs on him? I can't recall him getting on his bike and
I
scrambling.
would say never really had to.
It
He
never come
I was going to
can.
say he doesn't have to, does he? That's the
He doesn't
problem.
have to. Never really needed to. He can move.
Yeah.
And I think he's I think slightly less than Dante Moore, about the same as maybe Fernando Mendoza in terms of ability with the legs. Like if he sees a hole and it's the only option he's got, he
He's
probably can run it, but
he's
he
only
will.
ran 51 rushing yards in his career. So, but again, I don't know how much of that is truthful because obviously it's 51 yards. If he's been sacked, they've taken off the rushing yards. So
Yeah.
it may be that it's a bit more than that. But in terms of what from last year, he's down as having 42 attempts at rushing and 44 yards. So, he's averaging -1, apparently. That's not right, but it's 1. He's averaging 1 yard a game, or 1 yard an attempt, sorry. 1 yard an attempt.
Yeah.
Just over. So yeah, it's not his skill set, but it doesn't need to be when you've got the likes of his job is to get it to Jeremiah Smith and
Yeah.
co. So
And
why run it?
that's the next place I wanted to go with this one. I think if you are looking at the 2027 draft, there's only one name that's not a quarterback that will really stand out and that you need to be keeping an eye out on, and that is Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver from the team down south. When I say
Does he?
Ferraris, but I'm going to set this up. Just when I say Ferraris, Jeremiah Smith is a true Ferrari of a football player, to the extent where we watched him during his freshman season, and you can go back and listen to us say, even during his freshman season, this kid's NFL ready now.
Yeah.
He could walk into the NFL at the age of 18 and have a career. Um, what a phenomenal player. And can we see the first wide receiver since Calvin Johnson to go number 2 overall?
Well, this was what I was going to say: is could he be the number 1 pick?
I think that depends on who's picking number 1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even do you think there is a world where he could be like if we're going for like we've obviously talked about with Caleb Downs probably last year being the best, well this year probably being one of, if not the best athlete going into the NFL, is Jeremiah Smith the best player going into the 2027 draft?
I would say he's the best relative at his relative position. He is the best player.
Yeah.
So he is a better wide receiver of all of the side receivers than the quarterbacks, respective of the rest of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose in theory there is the scenario where he could go number 1, I suppose. But you've got that argument that whoever it may be, if Team A have the number 1 pick and they don't need a quarterback, then the amount of picks they would get from somebody who's desperate for that quarterback means that even if they were planning on taking Jeremiah Smith, they'll probably drop down a couple of spots and still get him anyway. So I think, while yes, he probably has the talent and the ability to go number one if that scenario played out, I think logically the way that we know how the draft works and the importance of the position would say that enough teams would try and get the number one pick if the team at number one didn't need a QB. I agree with everything we say about Jeremiah Smith. He is absolutely outstanding. Fletch goes on about him being a Ferrari, and he genuinely is. But if there's one guy that I'm looking to see, and that's his EA Sports cover partner, Ryan Williams,
Yeah.
because he had a down year this last year. So he was the one that got the Madden cover bad luck trait, because he had a
The
really
Madden curse.
he had a down year. But I think when you take into account his age and what have you, he's got so much going for him that I think hopefully he has a good year and turns it around. Because I think there is the chance that he could really make a name for himself, but I think he's going to struggle with the fact that he's at a less superior Alabama team who are under fire at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's going to be his biggest issue is that, I was having a look at him and looking at that Alabama team, and it does worry me a bit because as good as he can be, he still needs a supporting cast and particularly a quarterback who's going to be good enough to get him the ball, but also be protected enough to get him the ball. And that's my biggest concern is that he won't, they've obviously got Austin Mack in there. And I worry that he's not going to be able to shine as well as he can and show off his talent. Obviously, I know that doesn't necessarily then translate to, being on the field. If he still produces good enough tape, which we all know he can, then obviously he can still put up, high numbers and that. I do just worry that he's in a team where it's not going to benefit him, unlike, Smith or say Sayin, if there's an example.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one wide receiver I'm obviously really interested in this year, and I know it's a bit of a homer one, but I think this could be a really telling year for Cam Coleman.
Yeah.
Because he obviously he was at Auburn before. I think he struggled to really sort of impose himself at Auburn, and again now he's going to a team where, again, we're potentially looking at, we're talking about Arch being the potential number one pick or whatever, and the talent that he has, and that I think it'll be just as important for Arch as it will be for Cam Coleman this season in terms of their relationship and how they perform together. He could end up being in that conversation. Obviously, he isn't Jeremiah Smith, he isn't Ryan Williams, but he could get himself in the conversation of potentially looking at wide receiver 3 out of the draft class. There's a few that I have on. I mean, again, I think the wide receiver grouping this year is really interesting, and I think there's quite a good depth of wide receivers this year. Someone who, from a Rams perspective, obviously we're looking potentially, we may draft a wide receiver next year, given that we've already got a quarterback now. Someone that I'm really intrigued by is Charlie Becker at Indiana, and he's someone who's been talked about around the back end of round 1. I've not really managed to watch much of him, so he's going to be someone I'm keeping an eye on this year. But again, I've seen a lot of drafts where we've been put to him in the 31, 32 pick, obviously with the fact that the Rams are apparently favourites to win the Super Bowl this year again. So
it's his stablemate Nick Marsh that I'm quite interested in,
he's also on my
because
list as well.
he's come from Michigan State to Indiana. That's a step up, and I mean, I know because Notre Dame were obviously in for Nick Marsh, and he chose to go to Indiana, which fair enough. He obviously wanted to stay in the state of Indiana. He just couldn't choose which side of Indiana he wanted to belong to. He just chose the wrong one. But I think that could be quite an interesting step up from Michigan State to the national champions, and the changing division. That's quite interesting because Indiana can't afford to carry a wide receiver. They're not built like that, so they'll need him to produce as well. And he's another one. If he has a down year, at least he's got another year of eligibility if he wants to stay and try and improve it again next year. But it's quite interesting to see him step up, whether he's going to be able to make that step. Are we boring you, Fletch?
No. I'm trying to get my list up. I don't know what it.
The other one, similar vein to that for me, is TJ Moore at Clemson. Quite young. A great season could see him go and do something, or he could sit back for another year. Just got age on his side. Sort of a big guy on the outside. Probably needs to broaden his game a little bit. But you can do that across the span of a season.
Yeah, there's someone that I picked out as well was Mario Craver, someone who I again hadn't really heard much of him in the last couple of years, but has really sort of kind of moved his needle a bit in terms of the interest in him. And again, he's someone who is being touted for that low end one, high end two sort of round. Obviously at Texas A&M, team that aren't, in probably more in recent times. Obviously, again, it's he didn't have the step up that he wanted in 2025 from going from Mississippi State, but it wasn't terrible. It was a good season. It wasn't terrible. Just under 1,000 yards, but I think he'll be wanting to improve and show himself a bit more this year, and someone to look for at Texas because he's someone who I think is on a lot. But again, he's another one where he may, if he doesn't have as good a year, he can stay another year. This will only be his third year, so he could quite easily, stick for another year and wait. So, I like this wide receiver group. I think this one's quite an interesting one. Similar with the QBs. I don't know about you guys. The one group I just kind of obviously move a bit was the running backs. I found this was again, obviously last year this year we've just had, obviously Jeremiah Love was the main person, and there was quite a few others, obviously, Jadarian Price and such that there was a lot of like what I would class as like big names, and this year I'm really struggling with the running back class. Apart from Hardy at Missouri, there's a few where I'm unsure of as to where they'll fall and how good they'll be. Maybe someone like Nick Frazier might be another one. He might be one that comes out this year. And we've got obviously the Texans have got Texas Longhorns, sorry, I've got Raleek Brown who potentially could go as well.
Mark Fletcher Jr. for Miami as well, haven't you? That made a good run last year.
Yeah,
sorry, Sam. He's an interesting case because he could have come out last year. I had initially, before he said he wasn't coming out, I had him as one. I think I had him as like running back number 6 of the 7 that I have. So I had him pretty high, and then he just turns around and says, "Oh, I'm not coming out." Right, fine, fair enough, But he's on, like we talk about, say, Ryan Williams and that having the ability that if they do have a down year, they can go back again. Mark Fletcher's the other way. He had a really good year. He could have come out, but he's decided to stay behind, probably for the NIL. I can't say for
Yeah.
sure. But if he has a bad year, that's going to really, cost him. And is it really worth it? But I was surprised that he didn't come out last year, to be fair.
Yeah, there was a nice
Sorry, Sam.
platform to take advantage of, wasn't there? And he didn't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, I think it's the other one that I had was Keon Lacey was one that potentially again I think he has time on his side, so he could potentially stay a year. But I just think the overall draft class for running backs, and I think it's always one that I think depends. It's season dependent as to who's gonna, step up this year. And I know that CJ Baxter basically will have to. I think this will be his last year of eligibility. And again, he was one that was touted as being, the next best thing after Bijan Robinson, and his career's just not worked out the way it has with injuries and such. Um, but there's a few I've got, but there's no one that really majorly stands out for me at this stage, and that's obviously, it's the same with tight ends. I have the same issue with tight ends, and there's no one that has really stood out. But again, going into 2026's draft class, did anyone have Kenyon Sadiq as their outright number one? So, there's plenty of opportunities, I think, for both running backs and tight ends to be able to step up. And I think that's an interesting part of it is that there are opportunities here for people to state their case. I think probably the biggest one that I saw for tight end was, is it Jawan Johnson? I think the guy that is he at Oregon? Right in saying Jawan Johnson at Oregon? I think he's at Oregon.
Ryan Johnson might well be. Doesn't ring a bell.
I did have him down. Might be wrong though. Yeah, Jamari Johnson. Sorry,
Oh, Jamari Johnson. Yes.
Yeah, Jamari Johnson.
Yeah.
He was my number one on the list from the off because I've been taking him in a few Derby leagues, so I know he was on my list. But again, it might be one of those where you have to wait and see what comes out of the year to kind of determine them. But
Yeah, it's
Realised I was
very
answering your
unproven.
Jawan Johnson thing and I was on mute. Sorry.
yeah, I knew it was a Jay Johnson. I just couldn't remember his first
I was
name,
like,
and
I swear he's at the Saints.
he's at the Saints. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask, by the way, before I think we can start to look to wrap it up soon. We spoke a lot about offensive side of the ball. Couple of players defensive side of the ball, and my number one on the defensive side of the ball is Colin Simmons out of Texas. Which I will happily say this. I think Texas is got a lot of very good talent that could come out next year in the draft. Could be quite a few first round picks, couple of top 10 picks, definitely within, at least as it looks now, within that Texas roster. Sam, give us a little bit on Colin Simmons if you can, and if anyone else wants to throw out some defensive names on the defensive side of the ball, please.
I'm sure Nick will probably do it better justice. I mean, I the only thing I can really say to him is the moment I saw him in the year where I was kind of raving about Trey Moore a couple of years ago. Colin Simmons was just an absolute monster. He was ruining everything, and he's done it for the last 2 years. He just is a wrecking ball of an edge. He seems to be able to do everything at the moment on defense, and I think he has all of the talent to really be, we see some of these players that come out of college in those sort of edge rush positions that you just think this guy's something special, and he has that. Whether he lives up to it, we don't know. But he is just he seems like he's a step above all the other edges in college, and again, someone who I think is already he's close to being NFL ready. I still think he's got a
Yeah.
little bit to do this year, but I think he's close to being NFL ready.
He gives me Trayvon Walker vibes.
Mm.
He's got that sort of very sort of diminutive style and size, and yeah, certainly he's the best edge on the in the class. Um, it's when you compare it to this year's edge class, I think it's a significantly weaker class than the year that we've just seen go into the NFL. And I think that was one of the big recognitions out of the draft that's just gone, is that how strong the defensive side of the ball was. Um, I mean, by far and away, the best player on the defensive side of the ball is cornerback Leonard Moore. Just just saying that out of fact,
Second best.
you know.
Second best.
But while we're on edge, I
Oh,
think
go on.
I'm quite interested to see Quincy Rhodes Jr. at
Yeah.
Arkansas, because he was another one that could have come out last year or draft just gone, but he's chosen to stay behind for that extra year. And if he could really do himself some justice, because if he has a good year, there's not many players ahead of him.
Mhm.
So, it's like we just said for a few other players. This year it can make or break you. If you've got another year of eligibility left and you can stay behind and repair a year that isn't so great, you're great. But if you've just had a good year and you've stayed behind for the money, you're on a hide into nothing if it don't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you gonna say something, Adam? Sorry.
Uh, just shall I add a few words on Matteo Uyangale,
Yeah.
who's come back for us. Um, he's got better every season. He's been with us. Clearly that group, because Tatum, two Rarities that come back as well. They've got back. They want to win a natty. They've come back for one more shot of this, so it's kind of now or never. So I think he will continue to improve and should be up there somewhere on the board in that group. I mean, he's a menace. He's 272 pounds of bad intentions when he comes flying out. So,
Yeah.
hopefully he continues to improve.
And hopefully has a better last year in college than his brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just and I hope that for the people who had to face the wrath of their dad, um, anyone who went out of the way to criticize. I mean, I was in this like it was back when Twitter Spaces were a big thing as well a couple of years ago, and I was listening to one, and DJ Langlay's dad got into a space and they were talking about him. Got up and he was like, "Come and meet me. I'll meet you and show you all about what this family's about."
Yeah.
So we're not criticizing. We're not criticizing Mateo here. Nothing but respect for the young man. Um, please don't come to Manchester and meet me. I don't want that
Mhm.
smoke. But I think he's fantastic. He's absolutely brilliant. I really looking forward to seeing him this year. He's up there with mine, and I wanted to just throw back on Colin Simmons for 1 second. Want to read you some of this Colin Simmons' stats from his first 2 years. In his freshman year, 31 solo tackles, 17 assisted tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. Excuse me, an interception, 2 pass deflections, and 3 forced fumbles in his freshman year in the SEC. Damn impressive. Go to his second year, 23 solo tackles, 20 assisted tackles, 42 overall, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 2 pass deflections, a fumble recovery with 3 forced fumbles. That's also a lot of bad intentions. And as you go to see there, Sam, that's 12 sacks plus 3 forced fumbles plus 2 pass deflections in his second year. That's someone who can do a multitude of things on the defensive line, and that is a huge problem. And
Yeah,
he's not
he's.
doing it against scrubs, he's doing it against the SEC, which actually, to be fair, a third of that schedule tends to be scrubs anyway. So,
Have you seen our schedule for next year? It looks nasty.
to be fair, yours is.
But yeah, it's one of those where I think he's maintained a high level the moment he's played, and he's done it in a team where, granted, again, we talk about, obviously Ohio and their Rolls Royce, the Rolls Royce players that they have on their offense. Texas we've always had a good defense, and he's always had the bits around him to kind of support him and make him the player he is. But I think in comparing him to like we were talking about standing out, he stands out. He is the guy at that defense, and he stands out and he does the bits that he needs to. And I think he'll be up there. I think he'll be a top 10 pick quite easily. The only other player that I had on my list in terms of edge rushers and someone who I'm interested to see how he does this year, again, similarly to what we said about the Norris Sellers, is Dylan Stewart at South Carolina. Again, you look at his stats from the last 2 years. He had 17 solo and 19 solo across the 2 years, a total of 20 assisted, 11 sacks across the 2 years, 6 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble returns. I mean, he is someone who, although he's not been at the level, and I think that's more of a comment about South Carolina as a whole, he has been someone who has stood up, and I think, again, he is someone that if he has a good year, he could come out of the draft. If he has a down year or doesn't live up to the expectation, he could easily stay another year. So I think, again, he's in a good position. We'll just have to wait and see how the season plays out. But again, he's not, he's 196 meters tall, so he's what, 6'4", 6'5", something like that, 6'5". Like 1.96 meters is what I had. Sorry.
I was going to say he's not 196 meters. That's for
He
sure.
might be. He might be a big boy.
Across territory.
Unfortunately, the ESPN app has it all in meters and kilograms. So he's 111 kilograms, which I think works out at about 222 pounds. I can't be right. Surely more than
3
that.
pounds a kilo.
So 300 pounds then. So yeah, 3. Well, so we'll say 340 pounds. 6'5", 340 pounds. So he's a big guy.
He big.
And he has that he's the physical type of edge rush, whereas I think someone like Colin Sims is a bit leaner. He's not that much leaner, to be fair.
Before we go, I wanted to run one more thing by you as well before we wrap this up. One thing I find extremely impressive on the defensive side of the ball going into the 2027 draft, if things pan out the way they very much could do, Notre Dame could have the number 1 linebacker, the number 1 corner, and the number 1 safety in this draft, which I think is crazy to have the number 1 of all those 3. Obviously, you've got the linebacker in Kingston Viliamu Asa. You've got cornerback Leonard Moore, as Nick's already mentioned, and Bronte Johnson, who, depending on who you ask, goes all the way down from safety 2 to safety 5. He has a good year, could very easily catapult up to safety 1 in next year's draft. That's a huge, really interesting tidbit.
I think he would struggle to beat KJ Bolden, in my opinion, but it's still impressive.
Probably, but it's still a very good year from him. Could see him at least catapult and go a little bit. Everyone sees him a bit closer to Coy Perich or Ty Benfield, etc. But a good year could see him get a lot closer to KJ Bolden, which would be really, really interesting to see. And if Notre Dame do walk away with the top 3 at each of those positions, that's crazy. Before we leave, before we wrap up, there was something I wanted to do earlier in the episode. A new segment I want to try and introduce to this podcast, and my camera keeps freezing. I'm going to try and get. There we go. It's a little bit better. New segment I want to introduce to the podcast going forward. This week in college football. So as we know today, the day of release is the 7th of May. God, I forgot what month we were in then for a second. 7th of May all the way to the 13th of May, which is next Wednesday when we record this week. That I can find one piece of historical news, I guess. On the 8th of May, 1953. Should have wrote the year down when I did this thing. 1953. Hang on, give me a second. I need to figure it out properly. Nope, wrong one. Try again. There we go. On the 8th of May, 1953, is the birth of the ACC. As 7 members of the Southern Conference informed the Southern Conference at a meeting that they were breaking away and forming their own conference. Tie this in to a bit of trivia for the day. Can any of you tell me any of those 7 schools that broke away and formed the ACC?
Southern schools. Miami, yeah.
Miami was not one of them.
No.
Florida State.
Florida State was not one of them. Florida State didn't join the ACC until 1991 for most athletics, and then joined a couple of years later for football. Miami didn't join until the turn of the century.
Southern, would North Carolina southern enough?
So, North Carolina is one of them.
SMU?
SMU is not one of them. One quick clue: 2 of them are no longer in the ACC.
One of them South Carolina then.
One of them is South Carolina. Yeah.
Oh, Carolina.
As a general rule of thumb, you're already in the right area.
Oh, so that sort of coastal. Let's over that way. So North Carolina, NC State.
NC State is one of them. Yep. So we've got North Carolina, South Carolina, NC State. Think of schools in and around those states may not have the name Carolina in them.
Georgia.
No.
What's below the Carolinas? It's Florida, isn't it?
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest is one of them. Yep.
Duke.
Duke.
Is Nick just reading off a list?
Not the ACC list.
I'm looking at a map. I've got me map, look. I've got all me down. I'm gone down here, so I'm looking at me, but I've got logos, so I've now got to assign.
Isn't Clemson in Carolina?
Clemson is another one of them. Yes. So you've got 6 out of 7. 2 of the 7 are no longer in the conference, and you've got 1 of them. So the one left is not in the conference anymore. One more. I'll give you somewhat of a hint. They left in 2014.
Maryland.
Maryland.
Maryland. Sorry, I call it
Maryland.
Maryland. It's Maryland. Yeah, whatever that one is. The one
Maryland Manson.
where the
Um,
cookies are from.
you know what? Weirdly enough, I had some Maryland cookies last night. Very,
They are
very nice.
great.
Very, very nice. That new segment, by the way, is inspired by the wonderful Andy Davis, a friend of the network. He does on his Across the Pod podcast, he does the what's happened on this day in NFL history. I've been trying to do on our socials, obviously, if you check throughout the season, and it's slightly more important times of the year. It's very, very quiet for both sets of college and NFL, so not much goes out right now, but I try and do my on this days. Because I like the history. I like learning about the history, so I like getting a lot of that stuff in. But inspired by Andy Davis doing it with the NFL on Across the Pod, I thought I'd do it on here as well. Bring a little bit of something slightly different to the episodes. But that goes without further ado. It just goes for me to say a huge thank you to Nick, to Adam, and to Sam. Gents, I will see you next week. Nick, I hope you didn't throw away the notes because you will need them next week on the 2027 recruiting class.
Well ahead of you, weeks ahead of you. I don't know how I made that mistake. I was just like, yeah, right, okay, I'm all over this. Oh,
But you were thinking college rather than NFL.
Yeah,
That's the
because
excuse
I'm
you
on
can
a
go with.
college I'm on a college podcast. Why would I think NFL on a college podcast?
exactly.
In a year's time, they're all going to be dead to us anyway.
That's
Exactly.
true. It is true.
Can't argue with that. Nope, I can't think of any argument against that. So fair play, Nick. You were absolutely right to do that. Yeah, we'll see you next week for the 2027 recruiting class. Remember to follow AAW underscore CFB on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, and we will get you through the rest of the season. Nick, how many more Harry Potter marathons can we get through?
I don't know. I was about to ask Adam the same question because he's already
I'm gonna say what?
going down these Harry Potter
What was
marathons.
that? That was 127 last week.
Is it?
I'll
No,
have
it's
to recalculate.
437. I think it was.
So it's probably
To start the season, it was 157. You're right,
Right.
and that was what, a week ago.
Yep.
33. Yeah, it was a week ago. I can't remember
Could
the
be
form.
down into the
I'll have to
40s
figure it
now.
out. It's got to be into the 40s now.
I mean, I have watched
Is it
Thriller
like
once,
40
if
Harry
that
Potter
counts.
marathons?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've watched Thriller once, if that counts. I'm not doing it 95,000 times, but I have watched it once.
It's only 85,000, Nick. Come on, don't have to
I
make that.
can't remember.
Mrs. Fletch has already informed little Fletch of how many Harry Potter marathons they can drag me through.
What do you mean drag you through? You should be enjoying them.
I do enjoy them.
Never
I
seen
really,
a
really
single
enjoy
one.
them.
Well,
Never seen a single
you're
one film.
uncultured, Nick. I'll let you off because of your age.
Oh,
Wow.
damn.
Backhanded slap to the face.
Well, no, because
Wow.
me and Fletch, technically, it was our growing up era, so I'll let you off because of your age. It's fine to say.
I don't know what to say to that. That's you know,
Say thank you and then go to bed and then enjoy your day tomorrow.
that's what I'm gonna have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So follow us on AW underscore CFB. We'll have more tidbits for you like that. We have plenty of different things that we'll be putting out throughout the week on the socials. Come and join us. AAW underscore network as well on the other socials, just for the other things that we put out there. And until then, we will see you next week.